Hey, what's up, all you teenage metahuman superheroes out there? I'm Duuz-Diz-Din, coming at you with another Young Justice Outsiders episode in review. This time it's Season 3's episode 11 titled Another Human Freak, which sounds like a very aggressive title, all things considered, but in the context of the episode is actually kind of sweet in its own odd way. We pick up with Silas Stone still continuing to study the the father box, because I think all boxes look the same, because I am a racist, bigoted asshole. So, pardon my language, this father box, and he's, deep in study, only to be interrupted by his son, Victor Stone, who is rightfully pissed. However, as Victor enters, the door manages to bump some cables, which, in all honesty, should never be anywhere near a door that swings open and closed. But that shows how inattentive some of these people actually are to their safety. Like, literally, after this episode is done, there needs to be a straight-up safety briefing for all of Star Labs. But he is trying to give his father the business about not showing up to his game, being there to support him as he had a multitude of recruiters after the football game. But Silas is having none of his boys talk straight up. When he said that, I had Kratos flashbacks, like, boy. But he's not having any of Victor's tantrum. However, Victor, rightfully so, is just like, look, I am peak human athleticism. Not to mention I have a 4.0 GPA. Dude, you know how hard it is to maintain a 4.0 GPA? I barely maintained a 3.0 in high school. That's so ridiculous. But, he's just not having any of his dad's bullshit. And it's understandably so. You don't treat your children like this. It's fine to work, but the thing about having kids is the more you neglect them, the more they will lash out in sometimes very volatile ways. Attention is the right of every child. That's the thing. The attention is the right of every child. They should never be neglected to a degree where they have to start yelling at you to get you to listen to them. But that's a pitfall that several parents tend to fall into. And ultimately, Victor has had enough of his dad's neglect, and he decides to leave. Silas, realizing the error of what he's done, while his work is important, his son is also important, and developing into a man he will become later in the future is also very important. So, before he tries to stop Victor from just outright leaving, unfortunately Victor, opening the door, pulls out one of the cables from the apparatus that we've seen hinted for 2 episodes now. But it finally happens. The apparatus goes into a critical state and explodes right in Victor's face. We then see that Halo and Forager will be attending Happy Harbor High School, although Artemis continually tells Halo, no flying. Please, no flying. Kids don't fly normally. We also see that Artemis has picked up a glamour charm from Zatanna for Forager, which, should be very familiar to anyone who's seen the second season invasion of Young Justice. And so Forager will now be known under the alias of Fred Bug, which that's Bug with 2 G's, and Forager is very taken with the name, Fred Bug with 2 G's. And so, with the help of McGann, who is a guidance counselor, and I think she's the guidance counselor, and Snapper Carr, who is the principal, getting attendance into the school is fairly easy, which is very ingenious, in order to keep the cover of several young students. But as Silas views the situation and he is seen to be unharmed in the explosion, unfortunately Victor was not so lucky. And my god, the brutality of this scene is next level. Like, damn dude, you see he's still beating hearted there and everything. Like, yeah, y'all wrong for this, but he's damaged in all the areas that original OG Cyborg was, and has to have the replacements made that original Cyborg very much had to have made. So Silas decides to use the father box in order to try to restore his son, remembering the intel he got from John Henry Irons, aka Steel, that the father box has restorative capabilities, which we saw in episode 1 that I even commented on. It's just like, I don't remember ever seeing them do repairs and stuff like that, so I'm glad that's coming into play as well. So he literally just slaps it right on Victor's chest and it just starts working. And man, I love this scene because it's very ominous. The tone of the father box going off is so deep and intense. It just gives this really menacing tone and all that good stuff, which very much makes sense. And it creates this kind of cocoon for Victor too. Just, oof. This whole scene was really cool and really well done. Kudos to the animation team as well as the sound design team, because this moment was like the most intense out of this entire series. And that's really saying something, considering it's not even an action scene. But as Violet and Fred are being introduced to the class, they're immediately kind of labeled as freaks, as it were, because of the way they talk and act, which to a certain degree makes sense. These kids don't know their circumstances. But it also shows off the cruelty of high school kids. High school kids, you either currently being one, about to be one, or having passed that moment already, should already know the cruelty of high school kids from time to time. And if you don't remember, you were probably one of those cruel kids. Fuck you. But we also see the introduction of one character who I was not expecting to see, namely Harper Row, a character who was introduced in the New 52 as a new sidekick to Batman, a very temporary membership, but she does appear here and there in current continuity and Rebirth as well, so she's not just shoved out of the way altogether and forgotten. But this is Harper Row, who is known by the alias of Bluebird in the comics later down the line. A very gifted electrical, engineer, very talented, who has a brother who is homosexual, and she herself is bisexual as well. So, a very forward character who had some issues with her father, and a very interesting backstory. And she had a very close relationship with, of all people, Tim Drake, Cassandra Cain, Orphan, Stephanie Brown. Spoiler. So the fact that when they first appeared, I'm just like, man, all you guys need is Bluebird, and you complete that team that appeared in Batman Eternal. And sure enough, here she is. So I'm very happy to see this character included here, because she needs some love. I definitely feel like she needs some love. And speaking of needing love, she immediately hits it off with Forager and Halo, and deciding that they will be the best of friends, the outcast as you will, the outsiders. That running theme they have going of just characters who are on the outs of the social norms, basically. As the professors at Star Labs observe the healing process for Victor, they note that Victor's all functions are just done. He's dead, basically. They might as well just get him out of that thing before it does any more harm. But Silas is just determined to see it through and bring his boy back, not wanting to leave the relationship where it was before the accident. However, the father box does in fact start to take a hold and rebuilds the tissue that Victor lost. Although it's mechanical because, that's what father boxes do. That's what apocalyptic technology does. If you didn't know, this is how parademons are essentially created to a certain degree. They're infused with this metallic coating that overwrites their DNA, because they pluck people from various worlds and turn them into parademons, and they lose themselves in the process. Victor was very lucky because he had a very strong will and an interesting connection with the father box that was infused within him, which you see in Justice League, which you see in Justice League, what was it, War, I think it was, the New 52 adaptation. So you see a lot of things like that as you go through. So that's a very interesting note. And it basically revives Victor on all levels, and he starts to awaken. Whereas, Superboy is going out for a test drive of one of the motorcycles he's fixed, which I think is very nice. That's what Superboy does for a job, just fixes bikes for people in Happy Harbor. That's a good enough way to earn cash. Brion is seen still keeping himself appraised of everything going on in Markovia, the scrutiny that his brother is kind of going under in terms of his declarations about how to handle metahumans, as well as the refugees trying to pour into their city. Again, still very topical. And he even goes so as far as to try to get into the Justice League database in order to access information about Markovia, his sister, anything possible, only to be confronted by Dick, who questions what he's looking into. However, Brion decides to just start railing against him, saying, "What have you been doing in order to locate my sister?" Dick gives him the information that they have received, and the fact that, hey, we had some people investigate Santa Prisca. They have found out that your sister has actually already been moved off of there, some time ago. But Brion sees this as, we were too slow, we wasted too much time, waiting so much has done nothing. Wait and see approaches have just led to more trouble, hardship, and strife. That's why my sister is gone. That's why I've been kicked out of my country. That's why I have my parents are dead. Inability to act has just led to all the terrible things in my life. And so Dick just starts to kind of call out to him. It's just like, this isn't about your sister, isn't it? It's just you. Focus on all the things you've lost up until now. You're just wallowing in self-pity and regret. You know damn well we are doing our best to get as much information as we possibly can. Hell, we could just leave your ass to deal with this on your own. And the very fact that we are looking out for you, and this is me personally, thinking this honestly at this point, just the fact that they're trying their best in order to go out on a limb for someone they don't even truly know, that should be all the proof he needs to know that they are actually trying. Brion has to kind of stew in the fact that Dick tells him, look, you can either live in the past forever regretting everything that's happened up to this point, or you can start living for the future and start to just move forward and do something positive with the life that you have right now. There's a very ongoing situation in terms of this that stewed up anger and all, just dwelling on the past and all that good stuff. Because just as Brion has to start dealing with his own anger, we're about to see someone with their own anger issues. And Silas observes the unleashed son who has been healed more or less by the father box and turned into a cyborg. However, as Forager and Violet do their best in order to try to incorporate into the life at Happy Harbor, they're seen as freaks, basically, and aren't really given their acceptance as they were kind of hoping. It's seen as freaks, basically. But Harper tells them, you are freaks, and there's nothing wrong with that. Being normal is overrated. Only the fun and real people are freaks. That's kind of true. Like, even I was kind of if believe it or not, I too was a freak in high school. Although I had a lot of friends, so, freak is a very loose-fitting terminology here. The high school outcast, that was never truly me, but I stuck with the outcast. It's more fun to be the outcast, as Harper so puts it as well, deciding that she'll be friends with Fred Bug and Violet Harper. Although Violet isn't feeling too well, she has this uneasiness within her, which at first I thought was some other version of problems, but it becomes very apparent she's sensing the emergence of Cyborg. As Victor tries to get a grasp on what happens to him, and Silas immediately goes in trying to explain, look son, you were in an accident, we had to try to do our best to go to save you, but there was only one way to do it, and when Victor realizes what has happened to him, he's overwhelmed by personal anger just to his dad, and then this programming takes over, and he goes in to try to murder Silas. And as everyone tries to move on to their next class, Harper goes off, but Forager notices that Violet hasn't gone with him, and she isn't quite feeling well, and she feels something awakening inside of her, and no, it is not womanhood, I'm sorry for that comment, but it is a new power, an indigo power, which allows her to open boom tubes of all things, which, there you go, the fact that she is incorporated with a mother box is put on full display here. That connection she has with Sphere, like Greg Wiseman has been giving, Greg Wiseman and Brandon Vitti have been giving hints about this out the ass. So it should be no surprise that she is somehow incorporated with a mother box. How, I don't know. How that works, I really don't know. Because how it heals her flesh, what exactly Violet is, leaves a lot of questions. With Cyborg, it makes more sense because he has mechanical parts. Violet, not so much, but she opens a boom tube, goes through, and Forager realizes he needs to go get him again. And as Violet ends up arriving at Star Labs, she is immediately seen as a threat by Cyborg, or more specifically the father box within him, and he ends up going on the attack, getting ready to blast her, only for her shield to bounce it back, knocking him out cold. Violet realizes somewhere within her that she needs to cleanse Cyborg of the father box's influence, and after doing so, Cyborg immediately wonders who she is or what she is, with Violet not really knowing what the situation here is. But she wants her to remove his artificial parts maybe and fully heal him. But Violet says her powers don't quite work that way. Silas, tries to get her son to understand that, the parts are the only thing keeping him alive. Maybe if they were to study and understand, they might be able to do something to, maybe fully help him heal as a whole. But, Cyborg is having none of this, feeling that, look, this ain't living. I can't go back to a normal life now. That's always been the thing with Cyborg. His parts, he loses a lot because of it. Because he can't play football like this. Football made him happy. It was the one thing that made him happy. And without that, he loses everything that made him happy, everything that made him human. and he ultimately resents his father for even trying to save him, and he decides to go with Violet, you know, another freak like him. Silas tries to get his son to understand, like, look, I'm sorry, I didn't know what would happen. You know, the Justice League warned me. I should have listened. I should have listened to you. But it's ultimately too little too late. As, you know, Victor explains, look, Dad, the murder thing, that was all the father box. It wanted you dead. But the hate, the anger, the frustration, that's all me. And you know this. So it's better that I just leave. Not only just not to kill you, but because I just don't want to see you anymore. You know, and it makes sense. You don't get to, just because you help, just because his father helped, doesn't mean that all that time of neglect, you know, all that frustration, all that rage was just going to end up disappearing. It was always going to be there no matter what. And Victor's just going to have to work through that as best he can. And he can't do that with his father ultimately poking and prodding at him like another experiment, which ultimately his father does in the comics if you read it long enough. But, you know, that was always the thing. And, you know, I honestly prefer this origin to a certain degree because it adds more agency to Cyborg as a whole. Not to mention, it explains the amount of advanced technology going on within Cyborg, and the fact that Cyborg time to time could do things that just go beyond the reasoning of, oh, he was a man who became a machine. You know, it's like, no, he has this advanced technology within him that can do these impossible things. And so Cyborg leaves, leaving his father to stew in everything that has happened up until this point. And as McGann and Forager see the boom tube open, they see Violet emerge with Cyborg, with Violet wondering, with McGann wondering who this is, with Violet simply saying, another human freak. As Cyborg goes out to, you know, just take in everything that has happened to him up until this point. And speaking of, Brion finally comes to terms with Dick about the situation, with Dick asking, are you okay? Are we okay? And Brion simply saying, you know, I wasn't okay for a long time, but I'm getting there, and I'm gonna try to move forward. And yeah, we're okay. Because Dick has done his best in order to help Brion at every turn. Despite his anger, despite everything, Dick has stuck by Brion. So Dick at least deserves that much, you know, the guidance that Dick is trying to help him with and impart on him. And ultimately, I feel that this moment really solidifies Dick's character, a character that sometimes people forget about, that ultimately Dick Grayson isn't Bruce. He cares a little bit more. He's willing to empathize a little bit more. He's willing to show the vulnerability a little bit more. Not to say that Bruce never does that. He doesn't do it enough. And there are times when, you know, some people need that more softer touch in certain places. You know, Batman acts a little too cold in places where he need not be. But Dick will always reach that hand out. He'll always be willing to forgive a little bit more than he probably should, and help those who what other people might see as lost causes. And this really displays Dick's character in a way that I'm so glad that the writing staff understood, because I personally really appreciate it. And thus ends our episode with Lobo's continually decomposing finger, or growing finger. Huh. You know, if you look at it from a certain angle, it kind of looks like a little Lobo. Anyway, what did you think about this episode? Feel free to tell me in the comment section below. What was your favorite part? Did you like the Brion and Dick heart-to-heart? What did you feel about Violet, Forager, and their new friend Harper, and how they are outcast even when they are seen as more acceptable beings in the eyes of humanity? And what did you think about Cyborg's origins displayed here? It's interesting that they've gone with the New 52 origin, but the New 52 origin is actually a little bit easier to incorporate into the overall narrative of things, especially when you have Apocalypse on full display here. So I think that was the best way to go. And you know, what parts did you like? What parts did you dislike? And if you liked this video, feel free to leave me a like. And if you didn't, feel free to leave me a dislike and tell me what I'm doing wrong in the comment section below so that I might better myself for future videos. But until then, feel free to also subscribe, because I'll definitely be bringing you more episode reviews of Young Justice Outsiders. So, I will see you in the next video. Thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.